Hello, this is Aidan's Toy Trove. I am here today with what is the Premier Club Duende. There are 3 of them. If you watched any of my previous videos, or if you watched the previous video, I did open one Duende already. It was my personal copy from my Premier Club membership for 2017 that I had from Breyer, and he had enough flaws that I returned him to Breyer. I was not informed if I would receive a replacement or a refund. In an effort to receive a more satisfactory or quality Duende, I bought some on the secondary market for quite a good price. So not quite a big price, but a high markup, which I'm fine with. But I'm hoping that the quality on one of these is nice because I would really like to have one in my personal collection. So let's go ahead and open up Duende. Again, this is the newest Premier Club model by Mindy Berg, who is both painted and sculpted by Mindy Berg. He is a Pure Raza Española or Andalusian stallion. The PRE designation means that he is in the Spanish stud book and that he has registered Spanish heritage that has been traced all the way back in the Spanish stud book. So that is what the PRE designation is. So here is Duende's beautiful outer box, which is the Premier Club type box with the picture of the horse, so in this case Duende. From what I have been hearing, and obviously what I saw with the last Duende that I received, is that this model had a lot of production problems. Part of it, I think, was that the promo pictures that were released by Breyer were photographs of the actual resin prototype that had been painted by Mindy Berg and were not the plastic version and were not a plastic painted model. So Breyer's mass production will never look like that. But to me, this particular Premier Club model seems like it was really rushed through production and that there was very little quality control as far as the paint job and the prep work on the mold, which I find really sad because this is, again, the model that I joined the Premier Club solely for this year. This is the one that I was most excited about. The one that I returned had a really bad seam on his chest and some goobers, and then less importantly, he had a gray mark on his barrel, and he had a huge amount of overspray on his mane. So all the Duendes that I have personally seen online have had that large amount of overspray on the mane. I don't think there's any way that I'm going to get one without the overspray on the mane. But I'm hoping that I can receive one that's nice enough that there are no more glaring flaws. So I'm just kind of hoping for the best here, that one of these will be satisfactory. So I can already see that he has a shiny mark here on his barrel. I'm probably doing this video at a bad time. The sunlight's coming in and shining right in my eyes, so I can't see anything, and I'm not sure what you guys can see. Interestingly, what I'm seeing on this guy is he has bubble wrap around these left legs. The Duende that I received had the bubble wrap between the legs, which almost makes me wonder if he was a return, but I ordered him really quickly after he appeared on Breyer's website, so I don't think that there was any possibility of him being returned and then shipped out to me. As a note, Duende ships from Breyer via UPS SurePost, which is one of the economy services offered by UPS. So what happens is UPS picks up the package and they carry it until they get to the delivering town, at which point it is handed off to the post office. And then the post office actually ends up delivering the package to the consumer. And it's kind of a slow service, and I'm not real happy with it, and I try to avoid shipping using it because it's so slow. It takes about 10 days to get from the East Coast to the West Coast, and it's just a really long time. So this guy, you can see he has a white mark on his kind of belly girth area right there. So just that alone makes me kind of unhappy with this guy. On the not so major part, I can see that there's a little black dot on his haunch here. And these were bought from a privately. Then they were drop shipped to me by the owners. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to receive a refund or an exchange on these, but this guy, he's not as bad as my other one, but he's definitely got shiny marks on his barrel here, and the sunlight is making this look really dark on my phone, so I'm not sure what you guys are seeing. And there's that little white mark there, which is kind of a shame. He has it's just like the other one that the other ones I've seen. He has the star or the crossed apples on his haunches and his shoulders, and then he has the round apples on his barrel. And he has a very prominent leg barring here on his stifle and his lower legs. And this seems to vary in how this is painted, but from Duende to Duende, meaning how prominent or obvious it is, and some are more subtle than others. I personally would prefer subtle, but this guy isn't very subtle, and you can see he has a little scratch above his eye there. And okay, not a biggie deal, but he has some gray marks on the back of his ear. This is what I'm talking about the main overspray. You can see that the overspray really goes from this tendril all the way down onto his shoulder, and then from his withers all the way back. This one has a little goober on his forelock, but his face seam seems to be decent. His chest seam seems to be decent. You can see that I think a lot of the detail was prepped out of the front of his neck there, but there is no gap or raised seam like I had on my other Duende. His chest seam here is fairly neat. My other one, it was really bad. So yeah, this guy is probably nicer than the other one I had, but not the quality that I feel that a $200 horse should be. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next Duende, and I am going to try to find a spot to put Duende's wrapping here. So bear with me while I get all of his wrapping together. I'm just putting it back in the original box. Oh, and if you wanted to see, this is his certificate of authenticity. I'm not going to open it, but this is it. And this one, it's a little bent from being in the bottom of the box, and that doesn't bother me. The last Duende that I received, the COA was really crammed into the box and it was creased, so that made me not too overly happy. But again, that Duende was returned to Breyer, so I'm awaiting a response from Breyer in regards to if I'll be receiving a replacement or a refund, but he has already been shipped out and is gone, and I no longer have that first flawed Duende. So here is another Duende. I believe this one was inspected by the seller, and she didn't find any major flaws with him, so hopefully we are in agreement about his condition. Originally, for a couple of years in the Premier Club, I had 3 subscriptions to it, and I would kind of pick out my favorite of the models, and then I would sell the others, and I would always disclose any flaws. But what I noticed in the past years was all the models I was receiving from the Premier Club had flaws. So even though I was receiving 3 of them, none of them were really very acceptable. So I figured might just be easier to buy them on the secondary market, and that's what I did with these 3. I kept my one subscription in the hopes that the one that I received would be good, and this is the only model for the Premier Club this year that I have purchased on the secondary market again, because this is one that I really wanted for my personal collection. I absolutely love Andalusians. I love Mindy's work. And I think she did a fantastic job on him. And I do have some other molds to compare him to, and I do have a custom by Mindy that I'll compare this guy to at the end of the video, just as soon as I get these all unpacked. So I'd be interested to hear how, if you received a Duende from Breyer, how it came out condition-wise, if it had a lot of flaws, if you were happy with it, what you think about the sculpt itself, what you think about the color. I know a lot of people really hate his color. Personally, I don't mind it. I think he's pretty. He's not perfect, nowhere near perfect. He reminds me a bit of the paint job on Elegance. I think his name was Elegance. Might not have been, but it was the Solinero and in the Dapple Gray. That was part of I think it's like a dressage set. And he had the starred apples, and he was kind of more of a rosy Dapple Gray. Like he had more brown undertones than Duende, and that is who this paint job reminds me of. And that horse was also one that was really hit or miss as far as the quality on the dappling. Again, Breyers are mass produced. They're made over in China, and in general their quality control seems fairly low, and to me it seems like Breyer's version of quality control is make extras, and if it's severely flawed then we will refund or replace. But I honestly think in the case of Duende that they are going to be issuing refunds, because I can't imagine that they made as many extras as people are having problems with as far as receiving flawed models and wanting an exchange. And personally, I would rather have an exchange than a refund, because I really wanted this model from a personal collection. And in case you didn't see it, I'm not sure if I showed you, this is the Premier Club bag. It's kind of almost like a suede feel to it. It's tan in color, and then it has a green tie ribbon, and this is what all the Premier Club bags look like, and inside is the horse that's bubble wrapped. So I'm going to go ahead and put all his wrapping back in the box so I can keep it all together. So this is officially Duende number 3, and again this is one that had been inspected by the seller, so I'm hoping that he doesn't have any huge glaring flaws. He has what looks like a bit of a mate or a seam on his chest, which isn't too bad. It's a lot better than the seam that on my original Duende. I can see on this side he's got shiny marks on this barrel. I don't know if there was a masking or something that was used. It seems like I've seen on a lot of Pintos, these shiny marks tend to be around the area where the metal masking was actually clamped on to create the pattern. So I'm not sure why this guy would have shiny marks, but he does, and they're not too bad. He has what looks like a gobber in his paint right there, and he has kind of a gray dot on his face right here, and then compared to the other one, it looks like maybe this one's a little bit lighter, just for comparison. Let's see. This guy, okay, here, this is interesting. He has the darker leg barring on his hind legs on the lower there, and this guy actually has lighter leg barring on his cannon bones on his left hind, or on his hind legs. So that's a difference between the two. I'm gonna spin around, take a look at this side. This one has a lot subtler leg barring than the first one that I opened, or who was actually my second Duende. So it's not as obvious or as glaring as the other one. And I can see that he has kind of a, you can see where there's a crease or maybe a seam. Not sure if you can make it out on video. It's right here, and that brings me to think that I'll inspect the other Duende for that, because I'm not sure whether he had that. He also has kind of some little dots, kind of sandy feel, like there was dust or dirt that got painted over on his haunch right there. Not a big deal. I'm really nitpicking here. He has a little white dot here on his foreleg, and he has a little white dot here in his right armpit. Underneath, on his underside, his seam isn't so great. You can see that, you can actually see the crevice there. He has a darker belly stripe on his underbelly. Gosh, I don't know, this goober right here, it's like you can barely see it at some angles, but at some angles it's really obvious, so I'm not sure. I'm going to take another look, a closer look at that and see how much it's going to bug me. He also has, it looks like little white or unpainted areas over by his eye here. There's little pinprick white dots. I'm not sure if they will show on video. And like I said, the sun is just coming in right here, so it might be kind of shining through the plastic and emphasizing flaws that wouldn't otherwise be seen. Okay, so that's Duende number 2 for today, who is Duende number 3. Oh, and then I was going to show a difference on their top lines. This one was the first Duende that I opened. He has just kind of some dapples on top of his rump, not a whole lot. And this is Duende number 2 that I opened today, and he has dapples on top of his rump, and he also has the dapples on top of his back. The other one does not have these dapples on top of his back. Okay, so this one I purchased from Mindy Berg, who is the artist of Duende. When an artist creates a model for Breyer, Breyer gives them a certain allotment of models from the production line. So Mindy had however many Duendes she had, and she sold them and on Facebook and probably some other channels, and then she went ahead and she signed them. These are not artist proofs, these are actual production models. But I really wanted one signed by Mindy, so that's what this fellow is. And Mindy said she was going to look him over before she sent him, but I have not seen actual pictures of him before, so it could be a surprise. So here is Duende in his pretty box, and again, this is the one I got directly from Mindy Berg. So this is one that Breyer gifted to her as a thank you for designing Duende. I'm running out of room. Over there I'm sitting at my kitchen table, so I apologize for the mess. Our whole house is a mess. I won't lie about that. And his certificate is in the bottom there. And here he is inside his Premier Club bag. And actually just looking at these two Duende standing here in the background, the second one, or the first one that I opened today, and the second one. This guy has a lot more tan undertones on the tips of his mane, and this guy is almost just kind of a gray, so he doesn't have a lot of the mulberry undertones on his mane. I just noticed that, so I thought I would point that out. Here's for hoping for a nice Duende. None of these are really what I was hoping for quality-wise. So I'm kind of at a loss. I don't want to buy any more Duendes. I don't know that I can exchange these since they were from private sellers. So I'll have to think about that. I do think at least one of these will end up for sale. And again, these aren't severely flawed. They're just, I was really, really hoping to get a nice one, which is why I purchased multiples of Duende. Okay, so this guy right here is the one that I purchased directly from Mindy Berg, who is the artist this both the sculptor and the paint designer of Duende. I confirmed with Mindy. She used to own a Lusitano stallion who is not pure Spanish, so not PRE, but it's also a breed that Breyer, in America, the ILHA, which is the International Andalusian and Lusitano Horse Association, they lump both the Lusitano and the PRE together and call it an Andalusian. So just kind of some facts there, and I did write a blog post about that you are welcome to check out. It's kind of, I thought it was kind of neat because I really do have a passion for the Spanish breeds. This guy, let's see here. He looks pretty nice. Okay, so I'll just start right in with a nitpicking. Little bit of a seam on his chest here, not too bad. He's got a little rub on his left front knee, not too bad. He has wider leg barring than the other ones, so you can kind of see here how, and this is wider. So this is Duende number 3 from today, and I'm focusing on the leg barring on his lower legs. And then this is Duende, I don't even know what, but another Duende from today, and you can see that the leg barring on his lower legs is much thinner. I see he has some roughness on the top of his rump and his tail right here. That's not a big deal to me. What else do we have going on here, Mr. Duende? So far this one's looking pretty nice. I'm kind of hopeful. I kind of wish that the leg barring right here on his front leg hadn't ended so abruptly. I like the, this is more subtle leg barring here than the other ones. He's got a little goober or a rub or something on his, I always mix up what this is. This is like the stifle or the gaskin. I always get it wrong, so I'm not going to guess what this is. I'll just say this is his upper right hind leg. He has definite larger dapples on his barrel and around, and then he has the star dapples on his haunch and his shoulder. I kind of wish, personally, that these were blended a bit better on his shoulder. He has some rubs on the side of his hoof here, and he also does not really have too many tan or rosy undertones to his mane, which is actually one of the things I really liked about him, but I wouldn't call that a flaw. He that has the overspray that all these Duendes seem to have on his mane that goes from his withers down and then onto his shoulder. So this dark spot right here is something that I would consider to be overspray. You know, gray horses can vary a lot in color, so some people might just say that's shading. Also on his forelock, there's quite a bit of what I would consider to be overspray. He has ear tip rubs, and it always kind of baffles me how they come out of the factory like this, because I'm not sure how they're getting those rubs. It would be interesting to get an updated picture of how these models are painted at the factory, because I find it actually interesting of what causes some of the flaws. This guy does not have the shiny marks that the other two Duendes over here have, so that makes me happy. All the Duendes have a pearly tip to his tail, which I think is really pretty. This guy has a couple little small gray marks on the tip there, but nothing too bad. So honestly, of all of them, I think this is the one that I'm happiest with. He also, well, he doesn't have too much overspray on the front of his neck. Like you see on a lot of Duendes, there's a lot of overspray on the front of the neck right there, and I'm not seeing it. He has, wow, he has a lot of dapples on his underbelly, unlike the other two. And this was, he's signed by Mindy Berg, because I bought him directly from Mindy. So I just kind of want to compare his dappling on his belly to the other two, because you can see that he has a lot of the round dapples on his belly. So here is another Duende who has much more subtle dapples on his underbelly, and they both have the belly stripes. So I guess really they're kind of similar, but this guy's underbelly dapples are a little more obvious. And this one, I've already lost track of which number Duende this is. He has more shading, I think, between his front legs. Whoops. And to me, the dapples are less prominent on his underbelly, which I personally prefer subtle dapples to very obvious dapples. So you can see some more differences on the dappling. Again, these are hand painted, but en masse. So there will always be some difference between each model. This one has just kind of really skinny, subtle little star dapples on his neck right here, and I really like those. This particular one, this is the one from Mindy Burr, he has more thick star dapples on his neck there. And he has really kind of very prominent dapples on his offside shoulder there, which I personally don't care for. Like this guy's, they're a little more subtle, but I wouldn't call them subtle. And this guy, his are more subtle too. So again, there's just a lot of differences in the hand painting between these. Some people have commented that when Breyer makes a mold, the mold ends up being more narrow through the chest and more narrow through the barrel, just more narrow overall. I did not actually see the artist proof that was for preview at Breyer Fest, so I can't comment on that. I don't find that this kind of narrowness to him is distracting to me at all. Coming from a background and familiarity with Spanish horses, I would say that this horse is very narrow, and I don't know if that was how it was sculpted by Mindy or something that happened in the molding process. It would be interesting to know. Okay, so now that I have nitpicked all these lovely Duendes, I wanted to compare size. So this here is Hermosa, who was another Premier Club model who was sculpted by Bridget Eberl, and this is the Andalusian mare mold now, who is now a current release as Fantasia, and her foal. So this is her next to Duende. I think they're fairly comparable in size. Obviously the mare is trotting, so she's longer. From top to bottom she is shorter, but again she's in movement. So I'm not sure how much that movement in her legs affects the height, but you can see that there is quite a bit of height difference. And let me try to bring this camera down just a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about there. And then I'll give you just kind of a side view right here, so you can also see that Duende is quite a bit taller, but again the Andalusian mare is trotting, so her legs are bent. Oh, look, you can't even see her behind Duende there. So if we put her in front of Duende, and then hopefully back them up here so you can see them. Yeah, you can just see that height difference, and these are by different sculptors. The Andalusian mare was by Bridget Eberl, who is another one of my very favorite artists. And again, this Hermosa mold, Hermosa and Corazon, this was the model that I joined the Premier Club for the year that they were produced, because I loved them. Okay, so here is, well, I guess I should bring her back. This is Hermosa. And this is her foal, Corazon, who was also sculpted by Bridget Eberl. So you can see kind of the size difference between the mare and the foal there. And so then I'll show you the foal to you next to Duende. So they seem, to me, fairly similar in size. Okay, so that's all I'm really going to do as far as a size comparison between the Andalusian mare, the Andalusian foal, and Duende. I also have a Breyerfest Alborozo, who is one of my very favorite Breyer models ever. I never really realized, but his color is a bit similar to Duende. He's base coated, or Alborozo is base coated. So they both have the painted white base coat underneath. You don't see the white plastic showing through. And just because I need to check, this is the 2008 Breyerfest Celebration horse, and the mold was destroyed on purpose. So this is very hard to get a hold of horse. So we'll just do a quick comparison between him and Duende. Duende is a bit shinier, and he has the star dapples, and Alborozo has kind of more subtle dapples, if you would even call them dapples. So we'll go ahead and we'll go and do a size comparison. Again, this guy was sculpted by Breyer. So, size-wise, again, it's kind of difficult because of the movement, the semi-rearing pose of Alborozo here. But again, I think they're fairly comparable in size, I think. Duende's a bit longer in the face than Alborozo. So this is Duende, and this is Alborozo. One thing I just kind of noticed when I flip this guy around and you compare him to Alborozo, Alborozo has a lot more detailing in his face here, like sculpturally. I don't know if this was something that was lost in the molding process by Breyer, or if this was how Mindy sculpted it. Again, all sculptors have different styles. I just wanted to point that out because that was something that I saw when I had Alborozo up here. So, yes. There's your size comparison for Duende and Alborozo. I think Duende is a little bit bigger. So we'll put Alborozo back here. Okay, and this one is a very special model. And this one is a custom Alborozo by Mindy Berg. So this is the Alborozo mold that was sculpted by Bridget Eberl, and it was painted by Mindy Berg. So you can see this is one of Mindy's paint jobs. This is a custom. This is not a factory finished Breyer. So this was custom painted by Mindy, and this is pretty close to what the paint job on Duende's prototype looked like. So this should give you a kind of a comparison of what the prototype of the color on Duende looked like versus how the factory recreated the color. So I'll just give you kind of a view of this soft dappling that Mindy does. Interestingly, he has a little bit of pearl to his mane and tail, which I just love. Duende also has that pearliness to his tail. Mindy's work has a very soft look to it. I don't know what medium she uses. If I had to guess, I would say pastel. When obviously Duende is painted with paint, so that might be kind of where a lot of the differences lie in the paint job. Aside from being a mass production piece, you can see that there's a lot of difference in the blending and the feel of the dapples between a model that's hand painted. So again, this is the hand painted Alborozo by Mindy Berg, and this is the factory painted Duende by Breyer. And this particular fellow, just to note, he has a custom mane here. So this is a new mane. I'll just show you since they're both out. This is Duende, not Duende, this is Alborozo, the original, who has a kind of a free-flowing mane going forward on his neck, and then he has a little bit of a mane on the other side and a windblown forelock. And this guy has a neatly braided continental style braid mane and a braided forelock. And I think the tail is just a little bit tweaked too. I've been curious about that, so I'll just take a quick peek, see at that. Yeah, you see the Mindy added a little bit to the tail detailing here and moved the tip of the tail around, and she also added the shoes to this guy. And just, we'll take a look here. So this one was painted in either 2009 or 2004. I can't quite make that out. I almost want to say that's a 4, but it could be a 9. Maybe you can make that up. And I do love this Alborozo. But I thought it would be really fun to compare Duende, who was sculpted and painted by Mindy Berg, to this custom Alborozo, who was sculpted by Bridget Eberl, but painted by Mindy Berg. So I hope this has been helpful to you. If you guys want to see Duende compared to any other molds, just let me know. I have a lot of molds lying around here. So if I have it easily accessible, I would be happy to snap a picture of it for you. So this is Duende and my custom Alborozo by Mindy Berg. Thanks for watching.